I'm going to go ahead and open up with a quick word of prayer before we get started, and then we'll go with it. Dear Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all your many blessings. Just be with us as we go through this meeting and lead and guide us. Dear Lord, just help us to not only be representatives of the people, but representatives of you. In your name I pray. Amen. All righty. Chairman Shaw, you are what number?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank y'all for helping us all get exercise trying to find this place. I know everybody needs to be in 3 places at once, so I'm going to try to run through this as quick as I can. For those of y'all that are in the rural caucus, you've heard me talk for the last couple of years about what we thought was a need for some type of center to focus on rural development that could help us with policy decisions, analyzing data, kind of like our own think tank, if you will. What we've talked about all year with the Rural Development Council. This is a measure that's coming directly out of the House Rural Development Council. What it does is it's going to set up a center of innovation, a center for rural prosperity and innovation that will be created in connection with the university system. So the rural center will be located within a college of the university system, which awards a Bachelor of Science degrees in rural community development. So we're looking for an institution that has a focus on anything rural, and rural development has a degree program. So the center would, there would be a director and everything, and that this center would also assume the business and responsibilities of the Centers of Innovation currently administered through the Department of Economic Development. Let me find one quick thing. In meeting with various folks, and Chairman Watson and Chairman England have been real involved in this, and talking with various others, it's just become apparent that we don't necessarily have a lack of resources per se in rural Georgia, but we just have a lack of sort of integration in a lot of smaller communities. We've talked about with healthcare, we've talked about the need to do more leadership training for our authority members. So we're also talking about being able to use this center to do more leadership training within our rural communities and our local leaders and so forth. So it's all about integrating this. The other thing the bill would do would be to create a new position within the Department of Economic Development. And that's not needed. We don't have to do it through legislation. But if we do it this way, then it codifies it, and we know that there's a permanent focus for rural Georgia. So this would be a new deputy commissioner for rural Georgia within the Department of Economic Development. So that would be a person in the leadership of the department that's focused in getting out and about constantly in the rural parts of the state, working within their existing setup with their existing project managers to try to find more prospects and more opportunities for rural Georgia. I think we can all agree that there's no question about the fact that all the growth that we've seen over the last few years has not necessarily been in the rural parts. So this will be a way to focus more on the rural Georgia and the rural center. And there will also be coordination. We're asking for coordination between the Center for Prosperity, the Department of Economic Development with the Deputy Commissioner position, as well as involving our Department of Agriculture. And they've got some ideas to do even more than they're currently doing, to be proactive and reactive in terms of more opportunities, more value-added programs for existing industries here within the state, and also new industries and new prospects that we're hopeful will come from these new endeavors. So that's the gist of it, Mr. Chairman. I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we are limited on time, I think, for the room. So we need to probably limit our questions to a couple minutes. But Chairman Shaw, I did want to ask, this is something you've been working on. You've talked with some folks in Philadelphia, and
Yeah.
the 2-year thing you've been working on.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So we looked at what some other states were doing that have a similar demographics to Georgia, in that there's metro parts and then there's a lot of rural parts of the state. And Pennsylvania has a similar program that's been very successful. This one's modeled a little differently. We looked at theirs. I've talked to them quite a bit, to their director, and he's been real open to sharing what they thought worked for them and what didn't. We have something that they don't have here, and that is within our university system. Number one, I feel like we've got a strong relationship between the legislature and the Board of Regents, and we've got that kind of connection, and we have existing institutions that are already focused on rural Georgia. So Pennsylvania has a legislative attached agency, so it's not through the academia side in the regents. But what we felt like is we'd be better served with that, because we've got that existing infrastructure in place now, to be able to tap into that and partner with the university system in being able to, you know, do a lot more than we're doing now to integrate. I mean, there's just the sky is, it's just amazing what we're capable of doing when we've got the right tools in place. For instance, being able to go in and work with certain communities as pilot agencies and hold their hand and basically show them what the resources are. Now, a lot of this is already being done through the department, but this will just be a stronger focus now that we as a legislative body have fully realized that we've got to do something to help our rural communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Shaw, for the good bill. Just a point of clarification, on the last, on lines 172, it strikes out the Georgia Rural Development Council.
Oh, yeah.
Does that kind of get integrated into this bill, or are they meeting?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I should have touched on that, so I appreciate it. So in existing code, we've had the Georgia Rural Development Council in place for I don't know how many years, but it's been enforced for many, many years, but it's really had become sort of a non-active group, if you will. So this will strike that and basically be able to sort of do the same thing within what we're trying to do here through the Center of Rural Prosperity.
Thank you, Chairman. And Chairman, at the right time, I'd like to make a motion to do pass.
Thank you. And I know that this is very badly needed. You talk about the university system. You're including the technical colleges in that terminology. Is that correct?
Well, what we're focused on here is a institution where there's already a focus simply on rural with a degree program for rural studies, because what we're trying to do here is more research-based in addition to economic development work. So it would be, let's say we have an issue that's really affecting rural Georgia. I'll give you an example in talking to the folks in Pennsylvania. A couple of years ago when we started talking, that rural center was at the time focused on traveling the state and working on the heroin epidemic in the rural parts of the state. So I think that the university system, when you start looking at those type of research, opportunities that are needed, it would be better served to do it within a framework that's in place already that has that kind of background.
So this does not involve training people for any specific jobs?
Now, this doesn't really get into the workforce side.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, motion. I'd like to make a motion to do pass House Bill 951.
And I'll second.
All right, I'll head the rules. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.